Today we're exploring The Earliest People, Chapter 1 of the Story of the World, Volume 1. What if you had to move every time the food ran out? No houses, no farms, no grocery stores, just survival. Imagine picking up everything you own, walking for miles, and never knowing where your next meal would come from. That's what life was like for the very first people, called nomads, thousands of years ago. They lived lives very different from ours, but their choices shaped the history of the world. This is History Crossroads Kids. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss our next adventure into the past. Let's dive into a time before cities, before writing, before even farms existed. Part 1. Nomadic life begins. The first people were wanderers known as nomads. They traveled in small groups, usually a few families, anywhere from 10 to 40 people, all depending on each other to survive. They didn't stay in one place for long because their food supply was always changing. When berries and nuts were gone, or when the herd they hunted moved away, they had no choice but to move too. Imagine carrying every tool, blanket, and scrap of food you owned on your back or on a simple sled dragged along the ground. Kids walked alongside their parents, helping however they could. Some helped gather berries, while others kept watch over drying meat. Even children played important roles in survival. Nomad homes weren't built to last. Sometimes they sheltered in caves for safety. Other times, they stretched animal skins over poles to create simple tents that could be quickly taken down and carried away. Their most valuable possession was fire. Fire gave light in the dark, warmth on freezing nights, protection from animals, and the ability to cook food. Without fire, life was dangerous and short. Nomads lived close to nature. They had to know the paths animals took, where water holes would appear after rain, and which plants were safe to eat. Their knowledge of the natural world was their survival guide. Part 2. A Day in the Life. Now, let's step into the shoes of a child in a nomadic tribe. At sunrise, you wake up in a tent of sticks and hides. The ground is hard beneath your blanket, and the morning air is chilly. Smoke from the fire drifts through the camp. Your parents send you with other kids to gather berries and roots for the day's food. Meanwhile, the hunters sharpen their spears and head out in search of deer, antelope, or smaller animals. As you walk, you keep an eye out for animal tracks. Sometimes you find shells of nuts or fruit trees where food can be collected. When you return, you help carry water in clay jars or animal skins from a stream back to camp. It's heavy, but without it, no one can survive. In the evening, everyone gathers around the fire. Elders share stories about the world, why the sun rises each morning, or why animals behave the way they do. These weren't just bedtime stories, they were lessons about survival, morals, and traditions. There were no schools or books. Children learned by doing and watching. You would practice throwing a spear, help patch clothing from animal skins, or learn which plants healed wounds and which ones made you sick. Every lesson mattered because mistakes could cost lives. Now here's a question for you. If you could only carry what fit on your back, what would you bring on a journey that might last weeks or even months? Part 3. The Discovery of Farming. Then something happened that changed human history forever. Instead of always moving, people discovered that they could plant seeds and watch food grow in the same place year after year. In the Middle East, they planted wheat and barley. In Asia, they grew rice along riverbanks. In the Americas, they planted maize or corn. Each region had its own important crop, but the idea was the same. Farming gave people food they could rely on. This discovery didn't just provide food, it allowed people to stay in one spot. Families no longer had to follow the herds. They could raise their own animals. Goats, cows, and sheep became steady sources of milk, meat, hides, and wool. People even trained animals to help with work. Oxen pulled plows, making farming easier and more productive. Imagine what this meant. Instead of constantly moving, people built villages with permanent homes. These houses were made of mud bricks or wood, with roofs of straw. Families planted crops, harvested food, and stored it for the winter. For the first time, they could plan for tomorrow instead of just worrying about today. Farming didn't just feed people, it gave them free time. With extra food stored away, some people began working on other skills: pottery, weaving, and trading. Communities grew stronger and more connected. Farming was the first step towards civilization. Part 4: Why this matters. Shifting from nomadic life to farming was one of the most important turning points in all of human history. Nomads had lived in small groups that moved constantly. Farmers, however, built permanent villages. Villages grew into towns, and towns became cities. With more people living together, new problems and new solutions appeared. People needed rules, leaders, and systems of trade. Farming didn't just change how people ate, it changed how they lived together. Civilizations began to rise in fertile farming areas. The Fertile Crescent between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers became the cradle of civilization, where the first cities and written laws appeared. Along the Nile River, Egyptian farmers built pyramids and created a kingdom that lasted for thousands of years. In India's Indus Valley, people built carefully planned cities with straight streets and drainage systems. In China, farming along the Yellow River gave rise to dynasties that shaped Chinese culture for centuries. None of these civilizations could have existed without farming. Farming gave people stability, growth, and the chance to invent new ideas. In short, farming didn't just fill stomachs, it created history. Part 5: Quick Review. Let's see what you remember. Quick quiz. What did nomads do when food ran out? What discovery allowed people to stay in one place? Can you name one area where farming began? Great job! Now let's think bigger. Imagine drawing a map and marking the Fertile Crescent, the Nile Valley, the Indus Valley, and the Yellow River. These places shaped the future of humanity. Farmers planted fields, built canals to bring water where it was needed, and invented tools to make farming easier. They learned how to measure land, track the seasons for planting, and store food for long periods. These skills led to inventions like writing, calendars, and even governments. Here's a fun question for you. Would you rather live as a nomad, always moving, or as a farmer, living in one place? Share your answer in the comments. We'd love to hear what you think. Maybe you'd enjoy the excitement and adventure of travel, or maybe you'd prefer the stability of farming life. There's no wrong answer. This is your chance to imagine yourself in the past. This was Chapter 1 of Story of the World Volume 1, The Earliest People. If you enjoyed this adventure, remember to like, share, and subscribe to the History Crossroads Kids playlist. Follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and X for even more history fun. Every click helps us bring the past to life and share these stories with more people around the world. Next time, we'll travel to ancient Egypt. We'll explore pyramids, mighty pharaohs, and the mysteries of the Nile. You won't want to miss it.